Los Angeles, one of the great cities of America. We've come here to start a journey across a country that's really a continent, and across a superpower that's more divided than ever before. Between rich and poor, between minority and white, male and female, left and right.
It often seems like there are completely different ideas of what kind of a country America should be.
What kind of America do its people even want?
Well, that's a question that we've been taking right across America throughout the course of this election year.
What America do I want?
What kind of America I would like to have?
Big plans for America. John Evans,
my name is Silas Sleeper. I live in Troy, New York.
I'm a computer scientist.
I am America.
What America do I want?
The America that I want is one where power is returned to the ordinary citizen.
A hopeful America.
We want to make America great again.
Go Cruz.
Oh, yeah.
I'm supporting proudly Donald Trump.
Now we're setting out to explore some of the biggest issues that people have been telling us about. We'll meet the Arizona rancher who wants Donald Trump to build a border wall on his land, and the undocumented immigrant who just wants a voice. We'll meet the young veteran in New Mexico who rejects Barack Obama's drone wars, and the young Muslim in Kansas who's finding her place in America. We see the young black leaders in Tennessee facing problems they had hoped were already solved. And finally, in Kentucky, we meet the former miner resisting a war on coal and the schoolteacher who fears a war on women. So come with us on a journey into the mind of America. We drive out of Los Angeles and into the desert and the neighboring state of Arizona. These barren lands seem almost too hostile for human life. Now they're a battleground in one of the year's most bitterly fought issues. We're heading southeast towards the Mexican border and to a place where Donald Trump wants to build his wall. One last stop before we head up into the hills.
And I guess we also should check on our tires because the roads seem to be pretty rough.
And sure enough, things do get a little bumpy as we arrive at the Chilton Ranch. This is cowboy country, and if you think cowboys are a thing of the past, just take a look at Jim Chilton and his crew. Jim's cowboys are saddling up to ride out to the 1,000 cattle of the Chilton Ranch.
That's a stallion. Well, good luck, guys.
Thank you.
I may see you down there.
Jim takes us out to explore his land, 50,000 mountainous acres stretching right down to the Mexican border. For years, this was a prime route for illegal immigration. Now, drug cartels have taken over. Jim describes one time he ran into them.
Some drug packers were on the ridge, and they had seen me with their binoculars and watched me with my gun. And when I approached them, they jumped and ran, and they left 4 big 60, 70-pound packs of marijuana.
Jim placed some hidden cameras to show drug smugglers walking on his trails. He tells us these images are from earlier this year. But why is it so easy for people to get through? We head down to the border to find out. It's a slow 2-hour drive before we get out to hike the last quarter mile. We lug our gear along with us. Finally, we make it and discover that here the US-Mexican border is just a flimsy wire fence about 1 meter high.
I think it's a very poor excuse for an international boundary. I mean, it's laughable, it's hilarious to think that the United States boundary on my ranch is nothing but a 4-strand barbed wire fence.
Jim's America would have the fence replaced with a wall, plus access roads and bases for the Border Patrol. Right now, they're stationed 3 hours north of here, making Jim's entire ranch a kind of no man's land. In the state capital of Phoenix, volunteers are getting ready for a day out on the doorstep. They're part of a push to get Hispanic citizens registered to vote in time for Election Day. It's a non-partisan project, but for many, the motivation is clear: stopping Donald Trump. For Claudia Valdoa, it's important work. She's one of America's 11 million undocumented immigrants, someone who does not have a vote of her own. So this is her way of taking part in the election. Today, she signs up a young man and an older woman to vote.
It's very cute actually to help him to get registered so she can vote for me. I told her, please don't forget to vote because these elections, you are my voice.
Overall, the goal is to register more than 100,000 new voters, a number that could be enough to defeat Trump here in Arizona. We head downtown where the Hillary Clinton campaign is holding a small event that is aimed at Hispanic voters. For Claudia, beating Trump would be fitting revenge for a man she says is demonizing people like her and making her question her belief in America.
There is a lot of hate here. Like, it's horrible. It's just, like, I don't want this country for my kids. We cannot let him win. He's dangerous.
But Jim disagrees. He says that the situation on his ranch simply cannot go on.
We're foreign occupied. Why should I live in a foreign occupied area with the cartel scouts on our mountains? I mean, let's get serious. Why not have the Border Patrol at the international boundary? Why not have a wall and roads, and why not allow people to come in this country legally?
Without a secure frontier, Jim and his wife Sue feel their land can barely be called America at all. But away from these borderlands, the idea of a wall is more a symbol than anything real. And another dividing line among the many cutting through America. It's time to head on out of Arizona. Our route takes us through Native American reservations deep in the desert. We make a stop at a small hut where people are chopping wood for the winter. What kind of America do people here want? When we speak to Jason Luna, frustrations come boiling over.
I want to see America where natives are treated fairly, because this is our land. And I don't give a about white people or whatnot. This is our land. This is our land. Seriously?
Jason tells us that he's a Navy veteran, but he has little to show for his service. He's one of millions of veterans struggling to adjust after nearly 2 decades of wars. Those conflicts are on our minds as we drive east into New Mexico. We're going to meet one veteran who was deeply involved in a program that's changing the face of warfare. We meet at a veterans refuge in the remote town of Taos. Sean Westmoreland is just 28, but he's seen more of the world than most do in a lifetime. A former technician in the US Air Force drone program, he now helps out at this place for those bearing the scars of America's wars.
Coming here and working with the lands, it's therapeutic in the sense that, when you are in the military, you're using your creative energy for destruction.
We head out to one of Sean's favorite spots, the Rio Grande Gorge. Our own drone keeps a watchful eye. The spectacular landscape has echoes of Afghanistan, where Sean served in 2009. His job was setting up communication systems that underpinned drone missions, channeling that creative energy into what he came to see as a vast killing machine.
There's so much death and destruction that is happening through these communications that you set up, and yet you kind of go about your daily activities totally unaware of what's happening. it's extremely dangerous. It's dangerous when war can become an office job, because then what is really there to make you want to stop?
And it didn't stop. Sean eventually received a report saying he'd contributed to more than 200 kills. It was meant to be an accolade, but it set off a chain of events leading to his decision to speak out, as well as guilt, depression, and nightmares.
I'd see like a kid like sitting over her mother, and her face would be caked in blood, and I would just end up apologizing to the kid and saying I'm sorry, and then I'd see the kid she would just walk away from me. She'd have fear in her eyes, and then there would be another explosion and I'd wake up.
The drone program is meant to keep US soldiers far from the dirty business of war. It's expanded hugely and secretively under Barack Obama, a president who promised to end wars. Under his command, thousands have been killed, with many civilians among the dead. Just how many is hotly disputed. Obama has now introduced guidelines for future presidents, but neither candidate has said much about them. And for Sean, a fundamental problem remains.
You're eliminating people with no threat to yourself, and some would call that assassination, or someone would call that execution. I wouldn't call it execution, because execution implies that there's actually been some due process in the being conducted, and there's not. So I would just say it's assassination.
But military drones weren't always killing machines. Back at the refuge, Sean meets up with its director, Don Peters. He was involved in the early surveillance drones, the ancestors of our own machine.
It was not used to be destructive. It simply had on there eavesdropping equipment and cameras. And I don't necessarily agree with arming them, but humans are going to be devious and come with all sorts of intriguing ways to harm each other. I don't think that the technology is ever going to stop that.
But Sean says the next leap in technology could be uniquely dangerous. Autonomous warfare, where drones are powered by artificial intelligence.
I met one person, and they compared the idea of autonomous killer robots to like demons in the end days, because they're, they don't question, they just do. I mean, I usually try to stay away from making these analogies, but I mean, who knows?
Does America want this to be the future of its warfare? It's a question Sean says the nation he helped kill for must now face up to, whoever wins the White House. It's time to move on. We drive east from the high plateau of Taos through wooded mountains as we head towards the middle of the nation. At a roadside stop, we get talking with Sister Julie Ann, who tells us about the America that she prays for.
Be a more God-fearing country, and to live the Christian values.
But America's religious landscape is changing, and its dominant Christians are having to live alongside more and more other beliefs. We head next to the conservative state of Kansas, where a growing Muslim community is trying to find its place. It's morning here in Middle America, and like thousands of others like her, Jenna is on her way to college. Jenna's still a freshman and she's settling in well, but one thing does worry her. Next year, Kansas will allow students to carry guns at college. As a daughter of Syrian immigrants, Jenna tells us she fears her headscarf could make her a target.
All it takes is one person that has hatred in their heart or has negative intentions, and I don't know how comfortable I would be with everyone being able to carry a deadly weapon so easily.
But guns are a reality here in Wichita, the biggest city in the state. This is Trump's America, but it's also home to more than 9,000 Muslims. Many of them moved here to work at firms like Boeing and Cessna. Wichita's skyline bears that out. A large mosque now stands proud. Jenna's clear about what role she wants to play in this community. She wants to be a journalist, and she's already making a start as a reporter for her college newspaper, The Sunflower. She and her team spend long hours down here in their basement newsroom. She says American journalism needs perspectives like hers.
You're never really truly objective. You're always bringing your background and your history to the story, and that affects the way you look at the people you're talking to, the situation you're observing. And I think it's important to have people of different backgrounds for that reason, because two people can look at the same situation and cover it entirely differently.
Jenna's especially proud of her reporting on a dispute that broke out over the college chapel. The student body decided to replace its permanent pews with folding chairs so Muslims and other groups could also use the space for worship. The college had no objections, but a backlash followed. Critics claimed it was an act of Christian cleansing. Jenna deeply disagreed.
This is a public university. I think it's questionable in the first place to have a chapel at all on campus, since it is a state school. But if we're going to have one, it definitely should be, not aligned with one particular religion. It should definitely be open to everyone.
Now, Islam's place in America is the target of much of the poison in this year's campaign. What will be the effect on Jenna and her friends? They've already been the target of harassment in the street, shouts that they should take off their headscarves and go home.
It's a bit confusing to me when people say Muslims don't belong in the United States, just because Muslims have been in this country since, George Washington's time. And as for me personally, I was born in the United States. This is my home. So when people tell me to go back to where I came from, like, where should I go? Like, this is where I come from.
As America chooses what direction it wants to take, Jenna knows that she is going to have to fight for her place in it. But she believes in America, the country that she loves, the country that she calls home. But is America ready to love Jenna back? It's a question that stays with us as we head out of Wichita and back into the vast expanse of Middle America. From the open fields of Kansas, we pass through the hills of Arkansas en route to the southern state of Tennessee, and a city that's been the scene of tragedy. We've come to a lonely road in southern Memphis where last year a young black man lost his life. A small tree is all that marks the spot. William Young has brought us here. He's a student training to be a pastor and a leader in the local movement against police violence. This is what happened. It was a summer night when Darius Stewart was pulled over with a broken taillight. Officer Connor Schilling found that he had open warrants in other states. A struggle followed, some of it captured in a witness video. Officer Schilling then opened fire. For William, it was another case of police resorting too quickly to deadly force, and that frightens him.
Been pulled over and asked, do you live in this neighborhood? Where are you headed? Is this your car? How long have you had this car? It just lets me know I'm not safe and that my life can be taken away at any moment. So one of the reasons why I advocate for others is because just in case it happens to me, I want folks to advocate for me.
As for Officer Schilling, he's been granted early retirement for post-traumatic stress disorder resulting from the shooting itself. William finds that outrageous.
It's sinful, it's shameful, it's a disgrace, it's a miscarriage of justice. I can't even put into words. It's almost as if the Memphis Police Department just spit in my face.
We drive out of Memphis to meet another young black leader facing frustrations of his own. This mobile phone store isn't a place you'd expect to find a rising star in the Republican Party, but Chris Adams is taking a career break here, exiled from a party taken over by Donald Trump and his racially tinged campaign.
When I'm talking to Hispanics, Latinos, African Americans, people, East Indian descent, all the minorities I reach out to, these people, my personal friends, we look racist to them because this guy's at the top, so they always ask me, why didn't you stop him?
Trump's rise has shattered Chris's dream of a Republican Party that embraces a diverse America.
This is what we saw the future of our party being. A true Big Tent. We can have everybody in our party, and we can work on creating jobs and supporting communities. This is what we were looking for.
For now, Chris and his wife Alicia are trying to enjoy a quieter time with their baby daughter, hoping for a comeback before long. Back in Memphis, William pays his respects at the Lorraine Motel, where Martin Luther King was assassinated nearly half a century ago. The motel is now the National Civil Rights Museum, and William works here as a guide, funding his studies and finding inspiration at the same time. There are echoes of the civil rights era throughout downtown Memphis, and Martin Luther King's dream of a different kind of America, the dream that William still believes in.
I see an America where it says, you are a human being, you are an American, so you deserve equal treatment. I may not know you, but you're my brother, you're my sister, we're one.
Right now, that unity seems very far away. But here in Memphis, some people are ready and willing to find it. We leave the city, and with it the American South, heading for a place that is whiter, more remote, and grappling with decline, the Appalachian Mountains of eastern Kentucky. As we arrive, we head straight out on the campaign trail with Republican Norma Kirk McCormick. She's running for state legislature, hoping that strong local support for Donald Trump will help her get elected too.
Got to get them out of there. Got to get rid of the Democrats. Put the Republicans in. Let's see what they can do. It can't get any worse. As Trump says, what the hell have you got to lose?
Eastern Kentucky was once one of the biggest coal mining regions in the world. Now just a few mines and a few jobs remain. A combination of global market forces and environmental regulations have caused the collapse in output. Locals call it a war on coal, waged by Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton. Donald Trump is promising to end that war, and that's helped make him a hero for people like Charles Sanders. He spent his career supplying equipment to local mines. He says the whole political class has let the region down, and that it's time for an outsider.
I'm sick and tired of them playing with our lives over politics. I'm sick of the corruption. And Donald Trump don't need the money. He's a billionaire. You can believe him when he says he wants to help the people, because if anybody ever had a reason for helping the people, it's Donald Trump.
Other parts of Trump's message resonate here too. The wars of the Middle East couldn't feel more distant, but the fears Trump has stoked about refugees are very present.
What you got is you got Muslim terrorists that's coming in here. Their laws themselves says they got to kill Christians. Well, they put them in cages and drown them, burn them, cut off their heads. And we want to let them come over here without being vetted, without making sure them kind don't come.
But not everyone here is so in tune with Trump's thinking. Charlene Hensley is a teacher at the local elementary school, and she's openly supporting Hillary Clinton. That makes her a lonely voice in this community. But she says that others quietly agree.
Because I get messages from mothers of children that I've taught that say, I agree with you, but my husband would be furious if he knew. I can't help but think that that's part of the culture and that's part of the draw that Donald Trump has here, is that he's the man of the house and he can do pretty much what he says or wants to do. And Hillary is a danger because she represents a choice that these women have.
Gender roles are deeply ingrained in these isolated hills and valleys, and Charlene has spent her life challenging them. She herself was the first girl in her family to graduate from high school. Now she fears what a Trump presidency could mean for her young students.
I want one of my girls to be one of the first people to walk on Mars. I want them to be, but if they decide to be here and be sitting in the living room with their children watching the first woman walk on Mars, that's fine too. I just want them to be satisfied with it. I want it to be their choice and nobody else's. And I certainly don't want somebody like Donald Trump messing with their self-esteem.
We join Charles again for a visit to an old abandoned mine where he worked back in the 1970s. He's as worried as Charlene about future generations, but his fears center on Clinton rather than Trump.
But my life's about over. What about my grandchildren and great-grandchildren? It's only going to get worse for them. Education ain't going to help them. Education, by the time Hillary Clinton leaves office in 8 years, this country will be so far damaged, taxes will be so high, we're in a mess. If the people don't wake up in these last 2 weeks, we're doomed.
Now that election day is upon us, it feels like emotions are at boiling point. As we leave Kentucky, we wonder how America can move on after the votes are counted. We head out of the Appalachians and east into Virginia as our journey nears its end. This beautiful countryside was once the scene of fierce battles in America's Civil War. Today's America may be far from another civil war, but its political system is struggling to cope with the divisions we've just seen. It feels on the edge of a precipice. Makes us think about the America we want, one that finds a way of stepping back from this brink, not just for its own sake, but because the rest of the world needs an America that works.